Hello and welcome to BC Sport TV. This time we are bringing virtually our Six Nation talk show. We are in the penultimate week, but once again I'm joined with Phil and Mark to talk about more on this week 4 of Guinness Six Nations. Gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you.
How are you doing, good to see you.
First I want to know, a Friday night or a Friday evening 8 p.m. start, how different is that? We know it's an evening start, but in terms of excitement and emotion in the Principality Stadium when Wales host France.
I think once the game starts, it's absolutely the same as any other game. I think the build up to it is definitely different, and it's very different for the fans. Normally, it's a full day out in Cardiff, but to be there just for the evening, and we know that traffic will be heavy and it'll be difficult to get to the stadium. So it's just never quite the same for the fans. But once that game starts, I think it'll be exactly the same as any other game.
Yeah, that's something to look forward to. Not sure really whether it's an open door or a closed roof in the stadium. Phil, talking about Wales last week's performance, it was so good in week 3 against England when you consider the second half where they bounced back with 3 tries. And do you think they can keep that momentum going into the one of the favorites like France in the tomorrow night's clash?
Yeah, I mean, you'd hope so. I think if they start as poorly as they did against England, they're not going to have that opportunity against a very, very good French side, as we've talked about, to get back into the game. I think they did exceptionally well. I thought Alex Cuthbert was outstanding for Wales. And you know, really got them on the front foot, really brought them back into the game. Some of the carries he made and the yardage was hugely impressive. So they just need to start where they finished effectively. I really don't think that they would be able to you know, get back in the game, because France would be well out of sight by that point if they played as slowly or as poorly as they did in the first half.
4 changes when Pivak have opted. How does this going to be in this crucial game?
I think a couple of them really interesting. I thought Nick Tompkins had a good game against England, especially in that second half. And he was one of the catalysts for a lot of the sort of more open rugby that we saw. So it's strange not to see him in, although obviously Jonathan Davis comes back with a whole host of experience. I think Tane Basham is probably feeling a little bit hard done by. You know, he's been excellent in all the games that he's played so far, although Pivak felt that he made a few errors in the England game. Josh Navidi is you know, a very, very strong player coming in, but hasn't played much rugby. And we know that obviously Toby Faletau hasn't played much rugby as well. Toby had an excellent game against England and managed the 80 minutes really well. But actually to have Josh come back in as well, both of them haven't played a lot of rugby. So it was a very interesting selection.
It is very interesting selection. Looking forward to it, especially when John Davis, who has quite a lot of caliber in terms of playing for Lions and leading Wales in some games. Phil, in terms of the home pressure, how will Wales manage that? It is international level, but the thing is, they are playing against France. They had some belief that maybe the French captain Antoine Dupont, the World Player of the Year, might not be playing due to an arm injury, but he found fit for tomorrow's clash.
Yeah, I think at this point, I don't think the French side is out, but they're going to be as strong as they are. I think they've got that real depth that you know, lots of nations are pretty envious of, to be honest. So yeah, I think the fact they're settled, it's a reasonably consistent side, and again, it's the cliche we've talked about before, but the classic of you don't know which France is going to turn up seems to have gone, right? Like they have now found this consistency, and they found this ability to continue with a solid squad and solid performances, and that's going to be the big thing moving forward. Just how consistently can they stay with that? Because the world's best sides, as we've seen in the All Blacks and South Africa, for a number of years have got that ability just to keep coming and keep coming. And I think France are really probably on the cusp of being able to do that every week and make themselves a very, very difficult team to play against. And I think in terms of how they're playing, there was, again, some good analysis around last couple of weeks from a few different guys just talking about that they're really clear with from where on the field they kick and why they kick. And then once they're into the opposition half or into the opposition 22, then again, there's real clarity on how they're looking to attack, how they're using the offload effectively. And I think that's really clear when you watch them. That, you know, the classic, again, cliched UA, you know, will just play from anywhere, as seems to have gone. They do seem to have just real clarity in their objectives in each area of the field.
Wonderful indeed. Mark, it's pretty much the homecoming for Sean Edwards. I'm sure Wales will be looking to not only beat France, but to beat in terms of Sean Edwards' defensive work.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of Welsh people who'd like to welcome him with another contract, but I think we're probably past that now. Yeah, he's done an excellent job along with the other coaching staff for France, and as Phil just said, they can attack from anywhere on the field, and so Wales's defence is going to have to be, you know, excellent to be able to counter that. And I think we've seen over the last few weeks in all of the Six Nations games so far how important defence is as an attacking tool, because it's actually those turnovers and those or that ability to win the ball back that often provides you with your best attacking ability. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that happens. I must admit, I think it's going to be very difficult for Wales on Friday, whereas the second half against England was a lot better than we've probably seen elsewhere in the Six Nations. To be able to do that against probably now what is the best defence in the Six Nations is going to be a lot harder. So a big task for Wales, I think.
For sure, indeed. And I too think it's going to be difficult. So I predict France to win by 10. Gentlemen, let me see your predictions.
I wouldn't be far away from you, Sabir. I think possibly by 12 to 15.
I'm going to go for it, France by 20.
Wow, that's a quite interesting call. Yeah, probably they will eye on that bonus point. Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll talk about the England versus Ireland game. Welcome back once again. So England will host Ireland at Twickenham Saturday 4:45 kickoff. 6 changes in the Irish lineup. Phil, how do you think, you have been a part of our Irish coaching setup quite some time back, and how do you think now Jonathan Sexton is a key player and he's found fit?
Yeah, he's obviously an important player for them, as we've talked about previously, and comes in. He offers a huge amount of experience and a huge amount of quality. He makes them tick, and you know, that's not to say that the other guys that have been in the last few weeks haven't done that. They've got to a point where they've got some real strength in depth, and I think you can see that probably more so in the forwards, where the 8 they've listed to start the game is a seriously impressive side. So yeah, I think it's going to be a huge challenge for England. I think Ireland, as Eddie has talked about this week, which he got a bit of stick for, probably our favourites. I think they've performed well in the last few weeks. They've got that momentum, which, you know, going back to week 1, we talked about quite a lot. Momentum is a hugely important part of good performances in the Six Nations and getting those wins. But any side travelling to Twickenham, as Ireland have found out in, you know, the past probably 5 or 6 years, sometimes they've performed fantastically there, other times they've been put to the sword. So yeah, I mean, this is, as much as France Wales will be a good game, and I think England Ireland is probably the pick of the fixtures for the weekend for sure.
Yes, indeed. In terms of, you mentioned about Eddie mentioning in the press that Ireland are favourites. Mark, is that like what sort of a call is that? Is it really he want to mention that, or is it just a part of his media talks as he usually does?
Well, one thing that you always know with Eddie and with all the coaches, it's very much a little bit of mind games in the week leading up to the games. I don't think Ireland will be saying the same. I think they'll probably be saying the opposite publicly, although they will be probably quite confident, I think, going into this game. I was surprised to see them make so many changes, but it does show the strength and depth that they've actually got. It's interesting that apart from Simmons and a couple of positional things, England look the most settled team going into this game, with 6 changes coming from Ireland. So that'll be definitely play a part, I think, in the Irish team settling into the game. And as Phil said, it's never easy to go to Twickenham to win. So again, it's a big task for Ireland. If they play as they have done in the previous games, I think they should be strong enough to get the win. But it's certainly not an easy place to go. So it'll be a difficult task for them.
6 changes in that Ireland setup, but they have opted to go with Bandiaki and Henshaw in the center combination. We know that Manu Tulagi is not playing. He got injured just before the Wales. We were predicting him to play 5 minutes the other day, but even before the kickoff, he got injured. So how crucial in terms of Irish backs attack?
Yeah, the centre partnership is interesting with Ringrose and Aki. I think that they provide a bit of balance for each other, which is good. Mac Hansen probably feels a bit unlucky not to be on the wing, but Conway is coming back in and is a class act. And along with Lowe on the other wing, will provide a really attacking threat. With Keenan coming back in at fullback, that's a pretty strong back line. It's interesting in the English team to see Marchant at 13. Both Phil and I said right from the word go we were keen to see him start at 13. So it's really good to see him there. So yeah, I think the 2 back lines are pretty strong, and if we see a relatively attacking game, it could be, as Phil said, probably the game of the weekend.
Yeah, Jack Nowell also starting in the left wing. Also, Sam Simmons will be starting in the number 8. There was a talk that Alfie Barbary might start or might come off the bench, but it was Dombrandt who's in the bench. So it's still a good combination, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting one, because most people would have said Dombrandt was kind of standout for England last week. I'd be fascinated to know why Eddie's made that switch. Genuinely really disappointed for Barbary. I think he's a real talent, and the sooner we can kind of expose him to that level of rugby and see what he's like there, I think the better. So yeah, feel for him a little bit. I think the big thing is also actually for England just having Joe Launchby back. I think he does a huge amount of unseen work, which I'd liken him to England when they had Richard Hill. Different position, but when Joe's in that team, he just gets through work that a lot of people, I guess, casual watchers, if you're not looking for him specifically, just wouldn't see. And England miss that when he's not there. So yeah, I quite like the balance of the England team. Whether they've got enough go forward in the centres, I think Marchant was pretty quiet against Italy in terms of ball in hand. So it'd be nice to see him a little bit more in space and being a little bit more effective in the carries. And both him and Slade have got a really tough job up against the Irish pairing. So yeah, there's just kind of battles all over the park, right? Which is the exciting thing. That's what you want to see. High quality, world class players just kind of going at it left, right, and centre. So yeah, very, very exciting.
Finally, Mark, where do you think this game is win and loss to England?
I think it'll be win and lost up front, as most games are, and also how well the defences perform. I think what we saw in the England-Wales game was England started really very well, but Wales obviously were able to come back at them quite strongly in that second half. And England defence showed a little bit of fragility at times. So I think they're going to have to up that game to make sure that they're able to stay with the tempo that Ireland can bring. So yeah, as Phil said, lots of really key battles amongst the players, but also some key battles in terms of the general play up front and also in defence.
I think the big thing for England is they've got to score some tries. That's been talked about again this week. That you know their kind of red zone efficiency. I don't like the term, but actually just how effective they are once they get into the opposition 22 has been really quite poor. So they're working hard and they're doing some nice things to get there, but they're not coming away with the rewards that they would like to see or England fans would like to see. So if you're not going to score tries against Ireland, I think you're going to be in for a very, very long game.
Well, so it's all up for clash on Saturday at Twickenham. I don't know. No one is really predicting a draw. I really think it's going to be a 17-all draw, Mark. I would like to hear from you both.
I'm going to go Ireland by 5. I know Phil will probably go for England, but I'm going to go for Ireland by 5.
Yeah, I'll go England by 2. I'm not convinced by that, but we'll see. I think it'll be pretty tight. A draw is probably not a bad result. So.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We'll wait and see for this Saturday evening's results. Thank you, Mark and Phil. So that's it from BC Sports TV's Guinness Six Nation talk show, and we'll see you from the final week from our studios back in Birmingham City University.